In the vast and glittering hall of the Galactic Senate, delegates from countless planets gathered to discuss matters that shaped the future of the universe. The room buzzed with energy as representatives from advanced civilizations shared ideas, debated policies, and formed alliances. Each species brought its own unique perspective, shaped by centuries of evolution, technological progress, and cultural development. Yet amidst all this diversity, one seat remained conspicuously empty, the seat reserved for Earth. For decades, humanity's absence had been a topic of curiosity, speculation, and even ridicule among the galactic community. Other delegates often joked about Earth's refusal to participate in interstellar affairs. Some believed humanity was too primitive to understand the complexities of galactic politics. Others thought Earth's leaders were arrogant, choosing isolation over cooperation. A few whispered conspiracy theories, suggesting that Earth might be hiding something, perhaps a dangerous secret or an unimaginable power. But no one truly knew why the seat stayed empty year after year. Senator Alan Price, a seasoned politician from the planet Zentrix, sat at his desk in the Senate chamber, staring at the vacant chair. He had served in the Senate for nearly 2 decades and had grown increasingly frustrated with Earth's continued absence. To him, it wasn't just an empty seat. It was a symbol of missed opportunities. How can we claim to represent the entire galaxy when one of its most promising species refuses to join us? He muttered under his breath. Alan was a pragmatic man, known for his sharp mind and unwavering determination. His dark hair was streaked with gray, and his piercing blue eyes reflected years of experience in navigating the intricate web of interstellar diplomacy. Today, however, those eyes carried a hint of irritation. He turned to his colleague, Senator Emily Dawson, who sat beside him. Emily was younger than Alan, with warm brown eyes and a calm demeanor that made her a natural mediator. She had earned a reputation for her ability to find common ground even in the most heated debates. "Emily," Alan began, leaning closer so their conversation wouldn't carry across the room. "We've ignored this issue for far too long. Earth is out there ignoring every invitation we send. Why? What are they hiding? Or worse, what if they're not hiding anything at all?" Emily tilted her head, considering his words. "I agree it's strange," she replied softly, "but maybe we're approaching this the wrong way. Instead of assuming they're avoiding us, what if there's another reason? Maybe they don't know how to respond. Or maybe they're waiting for us to take the first step." Alan raised an eyebrow. "Take the first step? We've sent dozens of messages, invitations, even diplomatic envoys. None of them have gotten a reply. Doesn't that tell you something?" "It tells me that we haven't tried hard enough," Emily countered gently. "Sending messages is one thing. Actually going there, that's another. If we want answers, we need to go to Earth, ourselves." The idea lingered between them like a spark waiting to ignite. Alan leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the polished surface of the table. He had always been a man of action, but traveling to Earth was a bold move, one that required approval from the entire Senate. Still, the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. If Earth's silence was indeed a problem, then solving it would require more than idle speculation. Later that day, Alan stood before the assembled delegates, his voice steady and commanding, as he addressed the chamber. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, "for years we have wondered why Earth's seat remains empty. We have speculated, theorized, and debated, yet we still have no answers. It is time to change that. I propose that we send a delegation to Earth, not as invaders or judges, but as curious neighbors seeking understanding. Let us discover the truth behind their absence once and for all." The room erupted into murmurs. Some delegates nodded, in agreement, intrigued by the idea of finally uncovering Earth's secrets. Others frowned, skeptical of the effort it would take to investigate a planet that seemed determined to remain isolated. Among the skeptics was Senator Marcus Hale, a burly man with a booming voice and a tendency to dominate discussions. "And what makes you think they'll welcome us?" he demanded, rising from his seat. "If they've ignored our messages, why should we waste resources on a wild goose chase?" "It's not a waste," Alan shot back, his tone firm. "Earth is home to a species with incredible potential. They may not be spacefaring yet, but their technological advancements suggest they're on the brink of joining us. Ignoring them only widens the gap between us. Isn't it our duty to bridge that gap? Marcus opened his mouth to argue further, but Emily stepped in, her voice calm yet persuasive. Let's look at this logically, she said. Even if Earth doesn't want to join us, understanding their reasons could provide valuable insights. At worst, we'll confirm our suspicions. At best, we might forge a new alliance. Either way, it's worth the effort. After a lengthy debate, the Senate voted to approve the mission. A team of 5 delegates, led by Alan and Emily, would travel to Earth aboard the Aurora Dawn, a sleek cruiser equipped with state-of-the-art technology. Their goal was simple: to make contact with humanity and uncover the truth behind their mysterious absence. As the delegation prepared for departure, excitement mingled with apprehension. No one knew what awaited them on Earth. Would they find a society teetering on the edge of collapse, too consumed by internal struggles to look outward? Or would they discover something entirely unexpected, a glimpse into a future none of them could have imagined? On the day of their launch, Alan stood on the observation deck of the Aurora Dawn, gazing out at the stars. Beside him, Emily watched, silently, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we're ready for whatever we'll find down there?" she asked after a moment. Alan hesitated, then shrugged. "We'll have to be. Whatever the truth is, it's better than sitting here, wondering." With that, the engines roared to life, propelling the ship toward its destination. As the Aurora Dawn pierced the atmosphere of Earth, the delegates peered out the windows, taking in the sight of the blue-green orb below. From orbit, the planet appeared serene and vibrant, its oceans shimmering under sunlight. There were no signs of sprawling cities or industrial complexes, just vast stretches of untouched wilderness interspersed with small clusters of buildings. "This doesn't look right," Alan muttered, frowning. "Where are the megacities, the factories, the infrastructure we'd expect from a technologically advanced civilization?" Emily studied the view, her brow furrowed. "Maybe they've taken a different path," she suggested. "Not every species follows the same trajectory. Perhaps they've prioritized sustainability over expansion." Before Alan could respond, the ship's sensors picked up movement on the surface. A figure emerged from a nearby forest, waving at the descending cruiser. As the Aurora Dawn touched down, the delegates disembarked, stepping onto Earth's soil for the first time. Standing before them was a young man with tousled blonde hair and a friendly smile. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a loose shirt, and carried an air of calm confidence. "Welcome to Earth," he said, extending a hand. "My name is Ryan Carter. I'm here to help." Alan shook his hand, his expression wary. "Help with what? Where's your government? Your leader?" Ryan chuckled, his smile widening. "We don't have governments anymore. Not in the way you're thinking, anyway. Come with me, and I'll explain everything." As the delegates followed Ryan into the forest, the weight of unanswered questions pressed heavily on them. What kind of world had they landed on, and what truths lay hidden beneath its tranquil surface? The delegation followed Ryan Carter into the forest, their footsteps crunching softly on the thick layer of leaves covering the ground. The air smelled fresh and earthy, filled with the sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful for a planet they had expected to be bustling with activity. Alan Price walked beside Emily Dawson, his eyes scanning the surroundings suspiciously. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. "Where exactly are you taking us?" Alan asked, breaking the silence. His tone was sharp, betraying his growing impatience. He didn't like being kept in the dark, especially when it came to matters as important as this mission. Ryan glanced over his shoulder, his expression calm but knowing. "You'll see soon enough," he replied. "It's not far now." Emily, who had been quietly observing everything around her, stepped forward. "Ryan, can you at least tell us why Earth hasn't responded to any of our messages? Surely you must know about the Galactic Senate." Ryan nodded. "Of course we do," he said simply. "We've known about you for a long time, but let's just say, we didn't think you were ready to understand." Alan frowned. Understand? What? You're speaking in riddles. We're here to learn, so stop wasting time and explain. Ryan chuckled softly, unfazed by Alan's frustration. Fair enough. But some things are easier shown than told. Trust me, you'll get your answer soon. As they continued walking, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their branches stretching high into the sky like ancient sentinels, guarding the land. The sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden beams, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Strange plants with glowing leaves lined the path, pulsating faintly as if alive. The delegates exchanged uneasy glances. This was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Finally, they reached a clearing where a group of people waited. They looked human enough, men, women, and children dressed in simple clothing. But there was something different about them. Their movements were fluid and deliberate, their expressions serene. They greeted the newcomers warmly, offering smiles and nods of acknowledgement. One of the women stepped forward. She appeared to be in her late 30s with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes. "Welcome," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Laura Bennett. I'll help answer your questions." Alan shook her hand reluctantly, still wary of these strangers. "Dr. Bennett, I assume you're aware of why we're here. We represent the Galactic Senate, and we've come to find out why Earth has ignored every attempt at communication." Laura nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes, I'm aware. And believe me, it wasn't out of disrespect or arrogance. Humanity simply chose a different path, one that doesn't align with the goals of the galactic community." Emily tilted her head, intrigued. "What kind of path? What did humanity choose?" Laura gestured for them to follow her deeper into the clearing. As they walked, she began to explain. Over the past century, humanity made incredible advancements, not in technology or space exploration, but in understanding ourselves and our connection to the planet. We discovered how to merge our consciousness with Earth itself, creating what we call the Gaia Network. "The Gaia Network?" Emily repeated, her voice tinged with fascination. "What is that?" "It's a collective consciousness," Laura explained. "Think of it as a shared mind linking all humans together. Through this network, we can communicate instantly, share knowledge, and even feel each other's emotions. It allows us to live in complete harmony with the planet, eliminating the need for governments, economies, or hierarchies." Alan crossed his arms, his skepticism evident. "That sounds idealistic. Are you telling me that everyone on Earth willingly gave up their individuality to join this network?" "No one forced anyone to join," Laura replied calmly. "The transition was gradual. At first, only a few people participated, but as word spread about the benefits, more and more joined. Eventually, the majority of humanity embraced the network. It solved many of the problems that plagued us: war, poverty, environmental destruction. By working together as a single entity, we achieved a level of peace and prosperity that was unimaginable before." Emily listened intently, her mind racing with possibilities. "So you're saying that humanity evolved beyond the need for traditional systems of governance?" "Exactly," Laura said, smiling. "We realized that competition and division were holding us back. By uniting as one, we unlocked our true potential. The Gaia Network isn't just a tool, it's a way of life." Alan snorted, clearly unconvinced. "Sounds like a utopia. Too good to be true, if you ask me. What happens when someone disagrees? Or when the system fails?" "It doesn't fail," Laura insisted. "The network is self-sustaining. It adapts and evolves along with us. As for disagreements, they still happen occasionally, but they're resolved quickly because we can literally feel each other's perspectives. There's no room for selfishness or greed when you're connected to everyone else." The delegation fell silent, processing what they had heard. Emily seemed captivated by the idea, her eyes wide with wonder. Alan, however, remained skeptical. He couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was off. If this Gaia network was so perfect, why hadn't Earth reached out to the galaxy? Why isolate themselves? Before he could voice his doubts, Laura led them to a structure in the center of the clearing. It was unlike anything the delegates had seen before. a dome-shaped building made of translucent material that shimmered like liquid glass. Inside, intricate patterns of light danced across the walls, forming shapes and symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. "This is one of our hubs," Laura explained. "It's a physical manifestation of the Gaia network. Here you can experience it for yourself." Alan raised an eyebrow. "Experience it? You mean connect to it?" "Yes," Laura said. "If you're willing, of course. It's the best way to understand what we've created." Emily turned to Alan, her expression hopeful. "Should we try it? It might give us the answers we're looking for." Alan hesitated. He didn't trust this place or its people, but he also knew they wouldn't get far without cooperating. Finally, he sighed. "Fine. Let's do it." Laura guided them inside the hub, instructing them to sit on cushions arranged in a circle. She placed small devices on their foreheads, smooth metallic discs that hummed softly once activated. "Relax," she said. "Let the network guide you." At first, nothing happened. Then slowly the delegates began to feel a strange sensation, a warmth spreading through their bodies accompanied by a low hum in their minds. Images flashed before their eyes, memories, emotions, sensations all blending together in a kaleidoscope of experiences. They saw the joy of a child playing in the rain, the sorrow of a dying tree, the unity of millions of voices singing in harmony. For a moment, they weren't individuals anymore, they were part of something greater. When the connection ended, Emily opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "That was incredible," she whispered. "I've never felt anything like it." Alan, on the other hand, looked shaken. He rubbed his temples, trying to process what he had experienced. "It's overwhelming," he admitted grudgingly. "But I still don't see how this solves anything. You're completely dependent on this network. What happens if it collapses?" Laura smiled patiently. "It won't collapse. The network is as much a part of us as our own thoughts. It's not something external, it's who we are now." Despite her reassurances, Alan couldn't shake his unease. To him, the Gaia network felt like a gamble, a risky experiment that could unravel at any moment. But for now, he kept his doubts to himself. There was still much to learn, and he intended to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in hues of orange and purple, the delegation prepared to spend the night in the clearing. Ryan and Laura offered them food and shelter, ensuring their comfort. Despite their differences, there was a sense of mutual respect between the two groups. For the first time, Alan and Emily began to realize that Earth's absence from the Galactic Senate wasn't a sign of weakness or fear, it was a choice, born out of a desire for something greater. But as Alan lay awake that night, staring up at the stars, he couldn't help wondering, was Earth's decision truly sustainable? Or was their isolation hiding a darker truth? Only time would tell. The next morning, the delegation awoke to the sound of birds chirping and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. The clearing was bathed in golden sunlight, and the air felt crisp and refreshing. Ryan and Laura were already up, preparing breakfast over a small fire. They greeted the delegates warmly, offering them plates of food that looked simple but smelled delicious. "This is amazing," Emily said as she took a bite of the warm bread. "What's in it?" Laura smiled. "It's made from grains grown, right here in the forest. Everything we eat comes from the land around us. The Gaia network helps us understand how to live in balance with nature." Alan chewed thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. He appreciated the hospitality, but his mind was still preoccupied with questions. How could humanity survive without technology, without progress? It didn't make sense to him. As much as he tried to keep an open mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing from the picture. After breakfast, Laura invited the delegates to explore more of the area. "There's something I want to show you," she said. "It'll help explain why we've chosen this way of life." Curious, Emily followed eagerly while Alan trailed behind, his arms crossed and his brow furrowed. They walked through the forest, passing by trees that seemed to glow faintly and streams that shimmered like liquid silver. The deeper they went, the more surreal the landscape became. Strange structures began to appear, buildings that blended seamlessly with the environment, their surfaces covered in vines and moss. Some looked ancient, as if they had grown out of the ground naturally, while others pulsed with a soft, otherworldly light. "This is incredible," Emily murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. "How did you build all of this?" "We didn't build it," Laura corrected gently. "We grew it. These structures are alive, just like the trees and plants around us. They're part of the Gaia network, too." Alan frowned. "You mean these buildings are alive?" "In a way, yes," Laura explained. "They're symbiotic organisms, living, materials that adapt to our needs. They provide shelter, regulate temperature, and even purify the air. They're designed to coexist with the planet, not harm it." Emily nodded, clearly impressed. "So instead of building cities, you let the land shape your homes. That's beautiful." "It's practical," Laura added. "Living in harmony with Earth means we don't deplete its resources or create waste. Every aspect of our lives is sustainable." Alan stayed quiet, observing everything with a critical eye. While he admired the ingenuity of it all, he couldn't help but wonder about the trade-offs. What had humanity sacrificed to achieve this so-called harmony? Had they given up ambition, creativity, the drive to explore and innovate? As they continued walking, they reached a large open field surrounded by towering trees. In the center of the field stood a massive creature, a biomechanical hybrid that seemed to defy logic. Its body resembled that of a whale, sleek and streamlined, but its skin shimmered with metallic hues. Fins along its sides glowed faintly, and its movements were graceful yet powerful as it hovered silently above the ground. "What is that?" Alan asked, his voice tinged with awe despite himself. "That's Etheris," Laura said proudly. "She's one of our creations, a living machine born from the Gaia network. She's both organic and mechanical, a perfect blend of nature and technology." Emily stepped closer, mesmerized. "She's breathtaking. What does she do?" "She helps us maintain balance," Laura explained. "Etheris can travel across oceans and skies, repairing ecosystems, monitoring weather patterns, and even communicating with other species. She's a guardian of sorts, ensuring that Earth remains healthy and vibrant." Alan narrowed his eyes. "So, you're saying this thing is sentient? Does it think for itself?" "In a way, yes," Laura replied. "She's connected to the network, just like us. She doesn't act independently, but she contributes to the collective consciousness. Her purpose is to serve the greater good." Emily turned to Alan, her expression filled with admiration. "This is what humanity has achieved. Isn't it remarkable? Instead of conquering nature, they've learned to work with it." Alan hesitated, unsure how to respond. On one hand, he couldn't deny the beauty and efficiency of what he was seeing. On the other hand, it all felt too perfect, too controlled. He had always believed that progress came from pushing boundaries, taking risks, and striving for greatness. This peaceful existence seemed almost stagnant. "You call this progress?" Alan finally said, his tone measured but firm. "But where's the innovation? The exploration? Humans have always been explorers, dreamers. Are you telling me that everyone on Earth has abandoned those instincts?" Laura shook her head. "Not abandoned, redirected. Our focus shifted inward, toward understanding ourselves and our relationship with the planet. That doesn't mean we've stopped dreaming. We've simply found a different way to fulfill those dreams." "Different isn't always better," Alan countered. "You've isolated yourselves from the rest of the galaxy. What happens when the universe changes around you? When new challenges arise that you're unprepared for?" Ryan stepped forward, his expression calm but serious. "We're not afraid of change, Alan. The Gaia network evolves with us. If the time comes when we need to face external threats, we'll be ready. But until then, we've chosen a path that works for us." Emily placed a hand on Alan's arm, sensing his frustration. "Maybe we should give them the benefit of the doubt," she suggested softly. "They've built something extraordinary here. Shouldn't we at least try to understand it before passing judgment?" Alan sighed, knowing she was right. He needed to remain objective, to gather as much information as possible before forming conclusions. Still, the unease lingered in the back of his mind, gnawing at him like a persistent shadow. Later that day, the delegation returned to the clearing, where Laura invited them to participate in another demonstration. This time she led them to a smaller hub, a circular structure with walls made of translucent material similar to the one they had visited the previous day. Inside, glowing patterns danced across the surface, shifting and changing in response to unseen forces. "This is a memory archive," Laura explained. "It stores the collective experiences of humanity. Through the Gaia network, we can access knowledge instantly, share skills, and preserve history without relying on written records." Alan raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying anyone can tap into this archive whenever they want? Just download information into their brains?" "Essentially, yes," Laura said. "But it's not about consuming knowledge. It's about sharing it. Everyone contributes, and everyone benefits." To demonstrate, Laura activated the hub and invited Emily to step inside. Hesitant but intrigued, Emily complied. As the glowing patterns enveloped her, she closed her eyes, letting the sensations wash over her. Images flooded her mind. Scenes of ancient civilizations, scientific breakthroughs, artistic masterpieces, all interconnected in a web of human achievement. When it was over, Emily opened her eyes, her expression awestruck. "That was indescribable. I saw things I never imagined. It's like the entire history of humanity is at my fingertips." Alan watched her reaction closely, noting the mix of excitement and reverence on her face. Despite his skepticism, he couldn't deny the power of what he was witnessing. For a moment he considered stepping into the hub himself, but pride held him back. He wasn't ready to surrender control, not yet. As the day drew to a close, the delegation gathered around the fire once again, reflecting on everything they had seen. Emily spoke animatedly, her enthusiasm infectious as she described the wonders of the Gaia network. Alan listened quietly, his thoughts swirling like storm clouds. "I admit there's merit to what you've created," Alan said finally, addressing Ryan and Laura. "But I still have concerns. Your system relies entirely on unity. What happens when someone disagrees? Or when external forces disrupt your harmony?" Ryan exchanged a glance with Laura before responding. "Disagreements happen, but they're resolved quickly because we can feel each other's perspectives. As for external forces," he paused, his gaze steady. "We're prepared to adapt. The Gaia network isn't static. It grows and changes with us." Alan nodded slowly, though his doubts remained. He knew there was more to uncover, more questions to ask. But for now, he decided to keep his reservations to himself. There was still much to learn, and he intended to stay vigilant. Under the starlit sky, the delegation settled in for another night in the forest. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the trees. For the first time since arriving, Alan allowed himself to relax, if only slightly. Despite his misgivings, he couldn't deny the allure of Earth's unique path. It was a reminder that progress wasn't always linear, and sometimes the most profound discoveries came from looking inward rather than outward. But as sleep claimed him, one question lingered in his mind. Could humanity's choice truly stand the test of time, or was their isolation hiding cracks waiting to break? Only further exploration would reveal the truth. The next morning, the delegation woke to a misty dawn. The forest was quiet except for the distant call of birds and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Ryan and Laura were already up, preparing a simple breakfast of fruits and nuts gathered from the surrounding area. The air smelled fresh, carrying the faint scent of earth and flowers. As they ate, Emily couldn't stop talking about the wonders she had experienced the previous day. "It's incredible how connected everything is," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "The Gaia network isn't just a tool, it's like a living organism. It's beautiful." Alan listened silently, chewing slowly. He appreciated the hospitality and the effort Ryan and Laura were making to explain Earth's way of life, but he still felt uneasy. Something about the whole system didn't sit right with him. It was too perfect, too controlled. He couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had traded freedom for unity, individuality for conformity. After breakfast, Laura suggested taking the delegates to meet more members of the community. "You've seen the technology and the network," she said, "but understanding our way of life means meeting the people who live it." They walked through the forest again, this time heading toward a nearby village. As they approached, the delegates noticed that the homes here were even more integrated into the environment than the structures they had seen before. Some houses were built into the sides of hills, their roofs covered in grass and wildflowers. Others were suspended between trees connected by rope bridges that swayed gently in the wind. Children played in the open spaces, laughing and chasing each other. Adults worked together, tending to gardens or crafting tools from natural materials. Everyone seemed content, moving with purpose but without urgency. There was no sign of conflict or stress, just a sense of calm cooperation. "This is where most of us live," Ryan explained. "We don't have cities anymore. Instead, we live in small communities spread across the planet. Each one is self-sufficient, supported by the Gaia network." Emily marveled at the simplicity and harmony of it all. "It's amazing. You've created a society where everyone works together. No competition, no greed. How do you manage it?" "It's not about management," Laura replied. "It's about connection. When you're part of the network, you understand the needs of others instinctively. You don't hoard resources or act selfishly because you feel the impact of your actions on the whole." Alan frowned. "So you're saying there's no room for personal ambition? No drive to achieve something greater than yourself?" Laura shook her head. "That's not true. Ambition hasn't disappeared, it's just shifted. Instead of striving for personal gain, people work toward the greater good. Creativity and innovation still exist, but they're focused on improving the network and the planet," Ryan added. "Think of it this way. We've redefined success. Instead of measuring progress by wealth or power, we measure it by how well we coexist with Earth and each other." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "It's a different kind of progress, one that prioritizes sustainability over expansion. I can see the appeal." Alan crossed his arms, unconvinced. "But what happens when someone doesn't agree? What if someone wants to leave the network or pursue their own goals?" Ryan hesitated, then said, "That's rare, but it does happen. If someone chooses to disconnect, they're free to do so. They can live independently, though most find it difficult after being part of the network for so long. The truth is, once you experience the unity it offers, it's hard to go back to isolation." Alan raised an eyebrow. "Isolation? Isn't that what you're doing to the rest of the galaxy? You've isolated yourselves here, cut off from the rest of us." Laura sighed. "We haven't cut ourselves off, we've simply chosen a different path. Joining the galactic community would require us to compromise our values, to prioritize external goals over internal harmony. For now, we believe staying separate is the best choice." Emily glanced at Alan, sensing his growing frustration. She tried to steer the conversation in a gentler direction. "What about exploration? Humans have always been explorers. Has that desire disappeared completely?" "No," Ryan replied. "We explore in our own way. Through the network, we've mapped the planet in ways no satellite or drone ever could. We've discovered hidden ecosystems, ancient ruins, and new forms of life. Our focus is inward, but that doesn't mean we've stopped seeking knowledge." Alan muttered under his breath. "Inward exploration won't save you if the galaxy comes knocking." Later that afternoon, the delegation visited another hub, a larger structure nestled deep within the forest. This one was surrounded by towering trees whose branches intertwined to form a natural dome overhead. Inside, glowing patterns danced across the walls, shifting and changing in response to unseen forces. "This is a decision-making center," Laura explained. "When important choices need to be made, the community gathers here to discuss and vote. The Gaia network helps streamline the process by allowing everyone to share their thoughts and feelings directly." Alan stepped closer, studying the intricate designs. So, you're saying decisions are made collectively? No leaders? No hierarchy? Exactly, Laura said. Leadership implies division. Someone in charge, others following. In the network, we're all equal. Decisions emerge naturally from consensus. Emily looked impressed. That must eliminate a lot of conflict. No arguing over who's in charge, no power struggles. It does, Ryan agreed. But it also requires patience and trust. Not every decision is easy, but we work through them together. Alan shook his head, his skepticism evident. Sounds impractical. What happens when there's an emergency, when quick action is needed? The network allows us to respond quickly, Laura countered. Information spreads instantly, and decisions are made in moments. We don't waste time debating or second-guessing. Alan opened his mouth to argue further, but Emily interrupted. Let's try to stay open-minded, Alan. They've clearly put a lot of thought into this system. Maybe it works for them, even if it wouldn't work for us. Reluctantly, Alan nodded. He knew Emily was right. They weren't here to judge, only to observe. Still, the doubts lingered in his mind. Could such a system truly withstand the challenges of the universe? Or was it destined to crumble under pressure? As the day drew to a close, the delegation returned to the clearing where they had first arrived. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ryan and Laura invited them to sit by the fire, sharing stories and answering questions. Emily leaned forward, her expression earnest. I have to ask, do you ever wonder what it would be like to reconnect with the galaxy, to share your knowledge and experiences with others? Ryan smiled softly. Of course we wonder. But we also know that timing is important. Humanity isn't ready yet, not for the kind of interaction the galactic community expects. Maybe someday, when we're stronger, more unified, we'll reach out. Until then, we'll continue down our path. Alan stared into the fire, his thoughts heavy. He couldn't deny the beauty of what Earth had created, a society built on unity, sustainability, and peace. But he also couldn't ignore the risks. By isolating themselves, humanity had left itself vulnerable. What would happen if the galaxy demanded answers? If war broke out? If Earth's resources became too valuable to ignore? Finally, he spoke. You've achieved something remarkable here, but I worry that your focus inward has left you blind to the dangers outside. The universe isn't as peaceful as this forest. One day you might regret closing yourselves off. Ryan met his gaze, his expression calm but resolute. We're aware of the risks, Alan, and we're prepared to face them when the time comes. For now, we'll continue building a world worth protecting. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the trees. Emily watched the flames, her mind filled with conflicting emotions. She admired Earth's achievements but shared Alan's concerns. Was this path sustainable? Or was it a fragile dream waiting to shatter? As the night deepened, the delegation settled in for another night in the forest. The stars twinkled above, distant and cold. For the first time since arriving, Alan allowed himself to wonder, could humanity's choice truly stand the test of time? Or was their isolation hiding cracks waiting to break? Only time would tell. The next morning, the delegation woke to find the forest shrouded in a thick mist. The air was cool and damp, carrying the earthy scent of dew-covered leaves. Ryan and Laura were already up, preparing a simple breakfast of fruits, nuts, and warm tea brewed from local herbs. Despite the early hour, the mood among the group was heavy with unspoken questions and lingering doubts. Alan sat quietly, sipping his tea while observing the others. He had spent most of the previous night lying awake, staring at the stars and wrestling with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, he couldn't deny the beauty and efficiency of Earth's way of life, the harmony, the sustainability, the sense of unity. On the other hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's isolation was a gamble, a risky experiment that could unravel at any moment. Emily, meanwhile, seemed more at ease, her earlier excitement tempered by cautious optimism. She listened intently as Ryan and Laura shared stories about the challenges they faced when transitioning to the Gaia network. It wasn't easy, Laura admitted, stirring her tea thoughtfully. At first, many people resisted the idea. They feared losing their individuality or being controlled by some unseen force. But over time, they realized that joining the network didn't mean giving up who they were. It meant becoming part of something greater. Ryan nodded in agreement. Change is hard for anyone, but once people experience the benefits, peace, understanding, connection, they began to see the value in it. It wasn't about control, it was about cooperation. Emily leaned forward, her curiosity evident. How long did it take for everyone to adapt? Decades, Ryan replied. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Some communities embraced the network quickly while others took longer. There are still isolated groups who choose not to join, but they're free to live as they wish. We don't force anyone. Alan raised an eyebrow. Free to live as they wish? That doesn't sound like total unity to me. Laura smiled patiently. Unity doesn't mean uniformity, Alan. People can still make their own choices. The network simply provides a framework for living in harmony with each other and with the planet. Alan frowned, unconvinced. But what happens if someone makes a choice that disrupts the balance? What if they act against the collective good? The network discourages harmful actions, Laura explained. When you're connected to everyone else, you feel the consequences of your decisions directly. It's not punishment, it's awareness. Most people naturally avoid behaviors that harm the whole. Emily tilted her head, considering this. So, it's less about rules and more about empathy? Exactly, Ryan said. Empathy becomes instinctive. You don't hurt others because you literally feel their pain. Alan crossed his arms, his skepticism evident. Sounds idealistic. What about external threats? How do you defend yourselves? Without armies or weapons? Laura hesitated, then gestured toward the forest. We rely on Aetheris and similar creations. They're not just guardians of the ecosystem, they're protectors of the planet. If necessary, they can act as deterrents. Against aggression, Alan snorted. A living machine against an invading fleet? I'm sorry, but that doesn't inspire confidence. Ryan met his gaze calmly. We understand your concerns, Alan. But remember, we've chosen isolation for now, not weakness. If the galaxy comes knocking, we'll be ready. After breakfast, Laura invited the delegation to participate in a ritual she called the bonding. It was a ceremony designed to deepen their connection to the Gaia network, allowing them to experience its full potential. Emily eagerly agreed, while Alan reluctantly followed, still wary of surrendering too much control. They returned to the glowing hub, where Laura instructed them to sit in a circle. This time, the devices placed on their foreheads were larger and more intricate, humming softly as they activated. Relax, Laura said gently. Let the network guide you. As the connection began, the delegates felt a surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Images flooded their minds, memories of ancient civilizations, visions of distant futures, emotions so raw and vivid they brought tears to their eyes. For a moment, they weren't individuals anymore. They were threads in a vast tapestry, woven together by shared experiences and dreams. When the connection ended, Emily opened her eyes, her face flushed with emotion. That was indescribable, she whispered. I felt everything. Joy, sorrow, hope. It's like I understood humanity in a way I never could before. Alan rubbed his temples, struggling to process what he had seen. It's overwhelming, he admitted grudgingly. But I still don't see how this solves real-world problems. Empathy won't stop an invasion. No, it won't, Laura agreed. But it gives us strength. When we're united, we're capable of incredible things. The network isn't just about feeling, it's about action. To demonstrate, Laura led them outside, where Aetheris awaited. The biomechanical creature hovered silently, its metallic fins glowing faintly in the sunlight. Laura placed a hand on its smooth surface, and the delegates watched in awe as it responded, shifting its form slightly to accommodate her touch. Etheris isn't just a guardian, Laura explained. She's a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together. Her existence proves that technology and nature aren't opposites. They're partners. Emily stepped closer, reaching out tentatively to touch Etheris. The creature pulsed, warmly under her fingers as if acknowledging her presence. She's amazing, Emily said softly. I've never seen anything like her. Alan stayed back, his arms crossed. Impressive, yes, but symbols don't win wars. If the galaxy decides Earth is worth conquering, all this harmony won't matter. Ryan sighed. We're aware of the risks, Alan, and we're prepared to adapt. The Gaia network evolves with us. If the time comes when we need to defend ourselves, we'll find a way. Later that day, the delegation visited another community, coastal village nestled between cliffs and ocean. Here, the homes were built into the rock face, their windows overlooking the sea. Boats made of woven reeds floated in the harbor, and children played on the sandy beach below. This is where we harvest resources from the ocean, Ryan explained. Through the network, we've learned how to fish sustainably, ensuring the marine ecosystem remains healthy. Emily marveled at the ingenuity of it all. You've created a perfect balance. Everything serves a purpose and nothing is wasted. Alan nodded slowly, though his expression remained skeptical. It's efficient, I'll give you that. But efficiency alone doesn't guarantee survival. What happens when external forces disrupt your balance? Laura glanced at him, her green eyes steady. We adapt. That's what humanity has always done. Adapted to survive. The network makes us stronger, not weaker. As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the delegation gathered on the beach to reflect on everything they had seen. Emily spoke animatedly, her enthusiasm undiminished despite Alan's persistent doubts. There's so much to admire here, Emily said. The unity, the sustainability, the creativity. Humanity has achieved something truly remarkable. Alan nodded reluctantly. Yes, it's remarkable, but it's also fragile. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the whole system could collapse. Ryan crouched beside the fire, feeding it small sticks. Nothing worth building is ever risk-free, Alan. The question is whether the rewards outweigh the risks. For us, they do. The flames crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the sand. Emily stared into the fire, her mind racing with possibilities. Could Earth's path serve as a model for other civilizations? Or was it too unique, too specific to humanity's circumstances? Finally, Alan broke the silence. Let's say you're right. Let's say this system works, for now. What happens when the galaxy changes around you? When new challenges arise that you're unprepared for? Ryan smiled faintly. Then we'll face them together. That's the power of the network. Long as we're united, we'll find a way. The night grew quiet, the sound of waves lapping against the shore filling the silence. For the first time since arriving, Alan allowed himself to wonder, was Earth's choice truly sustainable? Or was it a fragile dream waiting to shatter? Only time would tell. The next morning, the delegation prepared to leave Earth. The mist had cleared, revealing a bright and sunny day. The forest was alive with birdsong, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Ryan and Laura accompanied them to the landing site where the Aurora Dawn waited, its sleek surface gleaming in the sunlight. As they walked, Emily turned to Ryan and Laura, her expression thoughtful. I want to thank you both for everything you've shown us. It's been eye-opening. I never imagined humanity could achieve something like this. Ryan smiled warmly. We're glad you came. Understanding is the first step toward connection. Alan stayed quiet, his hands shoved into his pockets. He still had doubts, but he couldn't deny that their visit had given him much to think about. For now, he decided to keep his thoughts to himself. When they reached the ship, Laura stepped forward, her green eyes steady. Before you go, there's one last thing we'd like to share. A message, if you will. A reminder of why we've chosen this path. She gestured toward the forest, where several members of the community had gathered. They stood quietly, their expressions calm and peaceful. One by one, they placed their hands on nearby trees, closing their eyes as if listening to something only they could hear. "What are they doing?" Emily asked softly. "They're connecting," Ryan explained. Feeling the pulse of the planet, reminding themselves of what matters most. Alan watched silently, his brow furrowed. Despite his skepticism, there was something undeniably powerful about the scene, something that stirred a faint sense of longing deep within him. After a moment, Laura turned back to the delegates. "This is our message. Humanity has found peace by embracing unity, not just with each other, but with Earth itself. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we believe our choice is worth protecting. When the time comes, we hope the galaxy will understand." Emily nodded, her voice filled with emotion. "I'll do everything I can to help others see that, to show them how special this place is." Alan hesitated, then added gruffly, "I'll report honestly to the Senate. Whether they understand or not, that's up to them." Laura smiled, gratefully. "That's all we ask for now." With that, the delegates boarded the Aurora Dawn. As the engines roared to life, Ryan and Laura waved goodbye, their figures growing smaller as the ship ascended into the sky. Below, the forest stretched endlessly, vibrant and alive under the golden sunlight. Back aboard the cruiser, Alan and Emily sat in silence, gazing out the windows at the shrinking blue-green orb. The journey home would take several days, giving them plenty of time to reflect on what they had seen. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "What do you think, Alan? Do you believe them?" Alan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I believe they're sincere. That much is clear. But sincerity doesn't guarantee survival. Their system works, for now. What happens when the galaxy changes around them? When new challenges arise that they're unprepared for?" Emily tilted her head, considering his words. "Maybe it's not about preparing for every possible threat. Maybe it's about finding strength in unity. If everyone shares the same goals, they can face anything together." "Unity sounds great in theory," Alan countered. "But in practice, it's risky. Too many variables. One crack, and the whole thing could fall apart." Emily frowned. "You're focusing on the risks, but what about the rewards? Look at what they've achieved: peace, sustainability, harmony. Isn't that worth striving for?" "It's worth admiring," Alan admitted reluctantly. "But it's not a model that would work for every civilization. Most species aren't ready for that kind of commitment, and even if they were, I'm not sure humanity's isolation is sustainable in the long run." Emily nodded slowly. "Fair point. Still, I think there's value in what they've done. Even if we don't fully agree with their methods, we can learn from their philosophy." Alan raised an eyebrow. "And what philosophy is that?" "That progress isn't always about expansion," Emily replied. "Sometimes it's about looking inward, understanding yourself and your place in the universe. Earth has chosen a different, has one that prioritizes balance over ambition. Whether it succeeds or fail, only time will tell." When the Aurora Dawn returned to the Galactic Senate, the delegates were greeted with curiosity and anticipation. The chamber buzzed with energy as Alan and Emily took their seats, ready to deliver their report. Senator Marcus Hale wasted no time, leaning forward with a scowl. "Well, what did you find? Is Earth hiding some secret weapon, or are they too primitive to matter?" Alan stood, his expression serious. "Earth isn't hiding anything, and they're far from primitive. In fact, they've achieved something remarkable: a society built on unity, sustainability, and peace. They call it the Gaia Network." Murmurs rippled through the chamber as delegates exchanged surprised glances. Emily stood beside Alan, her voice calm but passionate. "They've chosen a different path than ours. Instead of expanding outward, they've focused inward, learning to live in harmony with their planet. It's inspiring, in its own way." Marcus snorted. "Inspiring? Sounds like a recipe for disaster. What happens when someone disagrees, or when the galaxy demands answers?" "That's the risk they've taken," Alan said firmly. Whether it pays off remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. They've made their choice and it deserves respect. Emily nodded. We may not agree with their methods, but we can learn from their philosophy. Progress isn't always linear. Sometimes, the most profound discoveries come from looking inward instead of outward. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed their words. Some looked intrigued, while others remained skeptical. Senator Marcus shook his head, muttering under his breath, but he didn't press further. Later that evening, Alan and Emily stood on the observation deck of the Senate building, gazing out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched before them, endless and unknowable. What now? Emily asked softly. Alan shrugged. Now we wait. Earth has chosen its path and the galaxy will eventually respond. Whether that response is understanding or conflict, only time will tell. Emily sighed, her gaze thoughtful. Do you think they'll survive? If the galaxy comes knocking, I mean. I don't know, Alan admitted. Their system is fragile, but it's also strong in ways we don't fully understand. Either way, they've given us something to think about. Maybe that's enough. The two stood in silence, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. Below them, the bustling activity of the Galactic Senate continued, a reminder of the complexity and diversity of the universe. Amidst it all, Earth's empty seat remained, a symbol of unanswered questions, untapped potential, and the infinite paths of existence. For now, the mystery lingered, unresolved, but undeniably fascinating. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. Earth's story was far from over.